Hello, buddy. Welcome back to the 10 Man Score channel. I'm your host, Jeff for 10 Man Taylor. And today I'm reacting to my second Shiny Gold Tails video for you guys. So this was titled 3 True Scary Road Trip Horror Stories. So without further ado, I'm going to turn these lights off again, move the camera up here for you guys, and let's get this reaction on the road and then the back, shall we? Okie dokie, here we go.
After my second year of college, I finally bought my first car.
Okay.
I could never afford one when I was in high school, but thanks to student loans, I was finally able to get my hands on a used Toyota Corolla. I was driving it back to my parents' house for the summer, a big step up from the bus ride that I was used to. It was about an 8-hour drive, so I made sure to leave early in the morning. I had been driving for several hours, and the boredom started to get to me. I had noticed a few hitchhikers along the way, and I decided not to pick anybody up. I think it might actually be illegal where I live, but I'm not sure.
I mean, I don't think it's illegal to pick anybody up, but you just got to keep your eye out for ones that might look really bad. They might be high on drugs, or they might plan on telling you to pull over just so they can rob you or kill you and take your car. You just never know nowadays what would happen when you see a hitchhiker.
Anyway, after another dull half hour, I noticed a hitchhiker at the side of the road. I slowed my car as I got close in order to take a look at him before making a decision. He was a younger guy, probably my age, with a scruffy beard and bandana. He wore a jean jacket and brown pants with running shoes. Just a normal-looking guy, I thought. I stopped my car on the shoulder, and he jogged over. "How's it going?" I said. "Great, thanks, man. I'm Pete," he said graciously. Then I unlocked the door. He got into the front seat, and I started driving. We were actually hitting it off really well. He was super funny, and we had a lot in common. The time seemed to fly by, and eventually, it had been over an hour. It was then that I realized that he never told me where he was going, so I asked him. He told me that his friend has a small hobby farm close to here, and he was going to visit. He said that he would get out on the highway and walk the rest of the way if I didn't want to take him all the way there. At this point, I felt like the two of us had become friends, so I had no problem going a little off course in order to save him hours of walking.
Yeah, I would feel the same way too, because if you talk to somebody and you hit it off like you guys were longtime friends and he didn't seem like a huge threat, then I would have tried to take him as far as I can. But if he acts all suspicious, then I would have been pulling off near the destination he was going to and let him walk the rest of the way. But I don't know what's going to happen here, so let's just continue on with the story, shall we?
I told him that I'd take him all the way to the farm, and that he would just have to let me know where to get off the highway. We continued driving for a while, and eventually, Pete told me to take the next exit. I followed his instructions, and he continued to direct me until we were on a pretty remote dirt road in the country. We were surrounded by cornfields, but it all seemed like a large-scale commercial farm, not the small hobby farm that I was expecting. "Are we in the right place?" I asked. "Yeah, this is it," he said casually. "What? Where is it?" I prodded. "We're here. Just let me out," he insisted. I brought the car to a stop, and Pete quickly got out without saying a word. Not even thank you. Then he started walking down the road away from my car. This had me confused. We were in the middle of nowhere. This couldn't possibly be where he wanted to go, but what do I know? Although I was a little put off by his rudeness, I turned my car around and started driving back the way I came.
There you go. Don't ask questions. If he said that's the location, just drop him off, get him out of your car, and head on your merry way. I would assume that he would drop him off at a gate where the farm was located at, and then he'd just walk on that path instead of walking on the road still. It's weird, but at least he got him out of his car.
The country road had been empty until now. I hadn't seen another car or person or anything. However, that was about to change. As I was making my way back to civilization, I saw a truck on the road. It was a black pickup truck. I'm not sure what make or model. It was stopped in the middle of the road, blocking my path. I was confused at first, but then I saw another truck approaching from behind. That was when I realized that I'd fallen into a trap. Pete must have been in on it. I had only a few seconds to decide what to do because the space was closing in on me quickly. I looked left and saw nothing but cornfields. I looked right and also saw more cornfields, but off in the distance, the highway was just barely visible. I thought that I could probably make it there through the field, so I turned right and started plowing through. My vision was completely obstructed by large stalks of corn, but the highway was a large target. If I kept going straight, then I would get there eventually, I thought. After a few minutes in the field, I did eventually reach the highway. I turned onto it and got at least a few stares from the other drivers when they saw me emerge. That was a close call, but it could have ended a lot worse. What really gets me about this experience was how easy it was for Pete to gain my trust. Normally, I would not allow a stranger to lead me into the middle of nowhere alone, but all it took was an hour of good conversation, and I was willing to lower my defenses.
Yeah, you got to be careful because sometimes you gain people's trust and all of a sudden they turn their back on you and betray you by just getting some other people to set up a trap to keep you on that road. But it seemed like that's what they were going to do and probably tell him to get out of the car, rob him, or kidnap him. But thankfully, his brain was sharp enough to realize that there was a highway on the other side of the cornfield and he just booked it right through and got out. But that is really scary. Take this as a warning. Not every friendly hitchhiker is friendly. They might be just acting just to set you up in a trap. But anyway, let's get to story number 2, shall we?
Live and learn, I guess. Stay safe out there, everyone. I drove my car across the country a few years ago. It was something that I'd wanted to do for a long time, so when I accepted a job on the West Coast, I decided to use that as an excuse to cross something off my bucket list. Of course, it would have been faster and cheaper to fly, but I was really excited to see some of the often overlooked parts of America.
You see, that's the thing you don't get with flying across country or over to different other countries around the world is that you can't take in the scenic views. Every time we drive through the mountains, it's always peaceful to look at. You can't get that in an airplane. You only see is clouds that you're flying over.
However, something would happen to me on the trip that would make me regret that decision. I planned for the trip to take a little over a week. That way, I would have enough time to see some sights and I wouldn't have to drive after dark. That has always seemed really scary to me. It was day 5 of my trip, and I was ahead of schedule. Utah's border was fast approaching. The Rocky Mountains were in my rearview mirror, and the sun was about to set. It seemed like a good time to stop for the night. I had been lucky enough to find a motel almost every evening so far, and I only had to sleep in my car once up until that point. It wasn't a very good experience, so when I saw a sign for a motel on the highway, I felt relieved. I turned off at the next exit and followed the signs until I reached the motel. The bright neon sign stood tall in front of the parking lot. The sun almost set behind it. It was a single-level building that was wrapped around the parking lot in the shape of an L. I drove my car past the sign and parked in one of the many empty spots. There were 3 or 4 other cars there, out of maybe 10 or 15 spaces. I walked to the office and rented a room for the night. Then I made my way to the other side of the building, where my room was. When I walked in, nothing struck me as odd. It was a decently clean place, with a bed and TV. What more could I ask for?
Yeah, exactly, because if you're getting tired on the road and you need to stop and rest for a while, cheaper motel will always be good to go to because they're not usually as booked up as bad as like Ramada Inn or Best Western or any other name brand hotels. If it's got good working plumbing to take a shower and use the bathroom, brush your teeth, and sleep until the next morning. I don't care how bad it will look. I just need those necessities and then get up and be on my way the next morning.
One thing that I did notice about the place was how thin the walls were. As soon as I stepped into my room, I could hear my neighbor talking. He must have been talking on the phone, though, because I could only hear one voice. It was sufficiently muffled by the walls that I could only make out every 5 or 6 words, though, so I didn't really know what he was talking about. It was a little annoying, but only a mild inconvenience at this point. I jumped into the shower and brushed my teeth, ready to get some sleep so I could get back on the road early in the morning. When I went to bed, my head was pretty much against the wall where I could hear my neighbor. Now, it sounded like there were two people talking, and they seemed to be arguing. They were definitely two men, and although I can't be sure, I think I heard a few words in their muffled conversation that are slang for drugs. The talking continued for some time, and it seemed like the intensity was building. After a while, they were in a full-on shouting match, and I definitely heard some swearing. It was so bad that I almost called the police, but I decided that it was none of my business. Then, something happened that still sends chills down my spine. I heard the loud, thunderous sound of a gunshot, then silence. I jumped out of bed and hit the floor. If the walls were thin enough that I could hear talking through them, then I doubt they would stop a bullet. I lay there for a few minutes and heard nothing. I was pretty sure that it was safe, so I got up and dialed 911. I guess someone else had already called, because I started to hear sirens before I even told the operator where I was. When the police arrived, they asked me some questions. I told them what I could about the conversation that I'd overheard, and then, of course, I told them about the gunshot. I then found out that the bullet had gone into the ceiling, and nobody was hurt. I guess it was some kind of warning shot. Both guys must have taken off after that, and I never found out what happened to them. I laid awake for the rest of the night. Sleep was out of the question, and I started driving again as soon as the sun came up. It wasn't long before I made it safely to my new home, and although this incident could have been much worse, it does find its way into my thoughts from time to time.
Hey, you ain't kidding. I would have been jumping on the floor too if I heard a gunshot going off. But it was just somebody arguing, and then they shot a round off in the ceiling, and then both left. Yeah, that would be scary. I would not be able to sleep at night at all either. I'd be like waiting for them guys to go and then pack up my stuff and hit the road too. But that is just crazy that that actually happened. I'm just glad that this guy's okay and he was able to make it out safe and sound.
A few years ago, my wife and I booked a weekend at a nice-looking bed and breakfast in a small town near where we lived. It was about a 4-hour drive from our house through some pretty remote stretches of highway. We had taken Friday off work in order to make the drive. We left at noon and planned to arrive at around 4. Then we would have plenty of time to check in and maybe go for a walk around the town. We had been driving for an hour or two, and the highway was almost deserted. It was a single lane each way. At one point, I asked my wife to change the music on the stereo, and when she did, she noticed that we did not have any cell service. Not a big deal or anything. We didn't need access to every song in the world, but it is actually important to the story. After another hour or so, we noticed a car pulled over on the shoulder, about 300 or 400 feet ahead. We figured it must have been someone having car trouble. I work as a mechanic, so I figured we would stop and see if I could help. If it was a flat tire or something simple like that, then it would really be easy for me to get this guy going again. As we got closer, I could see that there was a man standing next to the car waving at us. He was about average height, with a beard and a dirty baseball hat. He looked like the kind of guy who would know how to change a tire, but you never know. I stopped my car behind his and got out while my wife stayed in the car. He walked towards me, and we met halfway up between the two cars. I could see now that there were no flat tires, and the hood was popped. He said his name was James, and he was very polite and friendly at first. I'm sure he was relieved that someone stopped to help, since there was no cell phone service on this stretch of road. We talked for 30 seconds or so. He must have thanked me 4 or 5 times for stopping. Then he simply asked me for a ride to the nearest town so he could call for help. I told him that I was a mechanic and that I would be happy to take a look. I added that oftentimes it's something simple that can be easily fixed and we could save a lot of hassle. At this moment, his friendly smile changed to an annoyed frown.
I figured that was going to happen because sometimes people pull over on the side of the road and fake having a messed up car just so they can get somebody to pull over and either get them to take them somewhere and probably rob them of their vehicle, or while they're attempting to go fix whatever problem they have on their car, they'll pull a weapon and threaten them for their car. You just don't know what will happen. I'm guessing that's what's about to happen here, since he said the guy went from a friendly smile to a frown when he said he could fix his car. That don't seem normal at all. He needs to be prepared if that guy decides to verbally abuse him or attack him or something. You never know.
He looked at me stone-faced, then with a flash, he forced the smile back onto his face and said something like, "I wouldn't want to put you through that. A ride to town is really all I need." I was spooked by this. It seemed like he just wanted an excuse to get into my car. If my car was broken down, then I would be thrilled to have a mechanic stop at the side of the road, willing to help. We stood there looking at each other for a few seconds. His forced smile was wearing thin, and I said, "I'm happy to look at the car, but that's all I can do for you." When I said that, what was left of his smile disappeared. This guy was angry. I don't remember exactly what he said, but it was some kind of guilt-tripping rant about how people never help each other anymore. I was impervious to his words, though, and I calmly walked back to my car, where my wife was waiting. When I got in, my wife asked what happened. I told her, and we took off. I was a little shaken by this incident, but we didn't let it ruin the trip. However, it doesn't end there. About half an hour later, we were stopped at a gas station, filling up the car, when I looked over at the road. There was a car driving by on the highway while I was filling up. I looked over at the driver and was shocked to see that it was James, the guy from before. We locked eyes for a split second until he disappeared around a corner. It was then that I realized that I'd made the right decision by not giving him a ride. He didn't want me to look at his car because he knew there was nothing wrong with it. I can only guess what he would have done if I'd let him get into my car. My wife didn't notice when he drove by, and I decided not to tell her right away because I thought it might ruin our trip. We ended up having a really great time, and we never ran into James again. However, I worry that he will try this trick on someone else, and they may not be as lucky.
I knew it. It was a complete setup. He just wanted to get somebody to pull over just so he can get in their car and then probably rob them before they take off. But thank God he trusted his gut and did not offer that guy a ride. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on post notifications for more Shiny Gold Tales content like this. This has been another successful song of the Tin Man's Core channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor. I said that's a wrap, and have a nice day.